So welcome to this session. This is mainly to showcase how to access database from Python. Right now I am in PG admin. Through admin, I am connected to this database, localhost. Within that, there is a postgres database. There are demo database, export database, postgres database. Within that, I am showing you table called Chennai _ e-governance, e-gov. It has got these many columns. Okay. Now, to connect to the database, the first thing is you need to do the pip install of this PSY-COPG2 that we saw in the last class. Once you do, after that you have to import it, and I'm giving a nickname as PG. The first thing you need to do is connect to Postgres, and then it will give you a connection string in your connection handle. When you do file operations, you open the file and then it returns a file handle. Same way, you have to connect to the database. It opens a database connection. It returns the database handle here. What are the parameters? One is the IP address. The database can be in this machine or in some other machine. You have to give the IP address. Here in this case, it is localhost. The database name is Postgres. The user ID and password also that I have set is again Postgres. So if you see here, there are multiple databases, demo, export, etc., of which I am connecting to this Postgres. Within that, I want to go to this Chennai e-governance data table. So first thing that you need to do is connect by giving these host name, which is the IP address, database name, user ID, and password, and returns a database handle, connection handle. All the time, ensure that you are closing the connection soon after use. I open the connection, now I close the connection. Same way for file, you open the file, close the file. Let me just execute this, see what happens. Okay, it just opens. The class of the connection handle is psycopg2 extensions.connection. So the object type of this C is connection. Once I connect, then I need to execute a query. But to execute a query, you need something called record set or a result set. For that, very simple syntax, standard syntax. RS record set equal to that C dot cursor. You need to give this syntax. Connection dot cursor will give you another handle. A cursor meaning something that can hold a set of rows in it, values of certain rows in it. Okay, I will explain you how we can use this cursor in a minute. So this is a standard syntax. You say that connection dot cursor, it returns a record set handle, but the record set is currently nothing. It is not having anything in it. It doesn't hold any record database rows. What should I do to get it to? Now I'm saying my query equal to Q equal to, I'm going to create a query. Select, let me see what are a few columns, let me say TX and date, ward, location, fire, accident. Let's select these 5 things from that one. Okay. TX and date, select TX and date, comma ward, comma location, comma fire, comma accident. These are all the column names from Chennai _ e-gov. This is the table name. Okay. So I am taking the query in a string variable. How will I execute the query in Postgres? If I take this one, okay, let me take this, copy, go to PG admin, there is a query thing that I can execute here, right? Query tool, and here I give that query, and I execute this. Now it is executing that, right? So I have a prompt to execute it, correct? Whereas I don't have a prompt to execute. So PG admin is the UI for seeing the tables in Postgres. Okay. So you have to install PG admin. If you install PG admin, you can see the details of Postgres tables. Pretty much you can, rather than a prompt, you can do everything over here. But most of the times you'll do only with prompt, but at least here it will look like a good UI, okay, rather than I don't have to go through all the command prompt issues. Okay. So it's a utility for Postgres to do the administrative activities. So whatever you can do prompt, all the commands you can do it from the query tool here also. Absolutely no issue, except it is giving you a graphical user interface. Now the same query I am giving in a string variable here. How will I execute? Very simple. rs dot execute, then pass that query. Okay, that pass that query. Okay, pass the query to execute. Okay, so before that, let me also show one thing. Let me just comment these lines and show something where you can make some errors also in the suppose I give a wrong password as Postgres 1. See what happens. Let me run it. See what happens. I run the program. I gave a wrong password. Python tries to connect to Postgres. It is giving operational error. Password authentication failed. So it is not able to log into Postgres. I know why the problem is. Now I go back and then give it, and I ensure I am able to run it. So if you are having, if you give spell the wrong database name, or if you give the user ID as wrong, IP address as wrong, anything you make a wrong thing, the connection will not be successful. It will error out. Now let me uncomment these statements. I am creating a record set object, and then I am giving a query in a string. I am passing that to this. Same way you close the connection, you have to close the record set also. All the time, make sure whenever you open a database connection, close the connection. Whenever you create a record set in Python, close that record set. Make sure that you do that as a standard practice. So I always suggest the moment you code this line, you code this line also, so that you will never forget. Otherwise, in between a call will come, you will try to get some logic, you will have some error, so you will try to debug, you will forget to close. So always make sure open and close, you will always do as a standard practice. Now, I executed the query. Here, if I execute the query in prompt or pgadmin, I am able to see it in front of my eyes. This is visually showing me on the screen. But how will I do it on Python? In Python, you have to bring it to a variable, then only you can print it to show it on the screen. How to bring what is the output? Very simple. I can say a row equal to record set dot fetch one. Do you remember read line? Read line in a file. After opening the file, you say read line, it will read one line. Then you do the next read line, it will go to the next line. Same way, in database connectivity, you execute the query, then that record set dot fetch one. From the buffer, it will bring it to this R. Okay. Now let me print type of R also. What it returns, you see the type of R also. Then I actually print the content of R. Let me run this. Look, it connected. The fetch one returned a tuple. The first thing is because it's a transaction date, this is the date. This is the ward, this is the location, this is the fire, this is the accident. So if I go back to my PG admin, the very first record is 2019-11-39313, right? So the exact record is coming over here. So this is a very simple way to fetch one record. How will I get next record? Okay. Now, how do I know how many records are here? Right now I fetched one record, but how many records are there? Now I want to say RC record count is equal to record set dot. The moment you put, it says there is a something called row count. I say row count print RC. Okay, let me run it. Now it says there are 2004 rows. So 2004 rows it returned, of which I fetched only one. If I want to fetch the first 20, what can I do? Very simple. For I in range 20 colon just put it in a loop. Okay, so it is actually returning. You can also do in the range I in range up to row count. Okay, if I say up to row count, then it will print all the 2004 records. Now let me print those records. Now let me say run. See, it is fetching all the records, printing it. Now what happens? It is in the database disk. From the disk, you are connecting from Python to Postgres. Okay. And from Postgres, you are executing a query rather than executing in the Postgres prompt. Then from that, you are getting one row by one row into a tuple and you are printing the tuple. What will I do with the tuple? It's up to you to do the program logic. So now there is a way he is providing from database table, bring it to Python in a tuple. From tuple, you can put it to another variable also. Suppose you want to check whether the, again, I gave a simple select statement, okay? Where, for example, let me go back to this PG admin, where ward equal to 3, okay, or location equal to 1. So I want to take that. Now I'm saying the governance, you can give where location equal to 1. So you can give join, you can give where conditions, you can give, the moment you execute, it brings all those information. So right now you could see the number of records is much less, correct? If I go back, the number of records is only 206 rather than 2004. So you can give where conditions, order by conditions, group by conditions, you can give joins, any SQL query, you give it to the prompt, you can straight away give it here. Then you execute in a loop to bring all this information into a variable or a tuple. Then from the tuple, what you do is up to you, depending upon the program logic. In database, I can still do insert, update, delete, everything. Whatever you can do on Postgres prompt, you can still do from Python. I can write a full-fledged application programming using Python. But our aim here is not to write a full-fledged application here. Our aim here is to, from file, get the data, do some processing. From database, get some data, do some processing. Our job with analytics is done with that. Our job is here not to push it to database, update the database, delete the database. It's not our aim. Our aim is just to fetch the data After fetching the data, you do some processing. So that is why we are restricting only to, at this point of time, select statement only, not beyond select statement. Very simple syntax. Import, connect, create a record set, create the query, execute the query for the number of rows returned in that, put it in a range. This is one possibility. There is one more thing, okay? There is one more thing that I can do is, let me go here. There is something called rs dot fetch. Something called rs dot fetch all, okay? For example, a equal to rs dot, takes time to show that, okay? Let me try to say, okay? It's a fetch all command also. Let me try to run whether the syntax is right. Let me check. Okay, see, squeezed text, 128 lines. See, look at this. It is giving the whole thing in one shot. Either you put it in a loop and then iterate in a loop. Here the number of records is 206, so I didn't see any issue. So I just brought it is in one shot, fetch all. But if the issue is, if it is going to be like 2 million items, I cannot use this fetch all. So better, whenever you are writing a select statement as a standard programming practice, never write a select statement without a where condition, so that at least you are able to bring. And do not bring the records which are unnecessary for your processing. So ensure your where condition fetches those records that you need for your logic. If I'm not going to deal with word number anything other than 3, I should include where word number is equal to 3 and the location equal to 1, something like that, so that make sure the number of records you bring into memory is extremely limited. Otherwise, if you suddenly bring some 2 million records into memory and each record is occupying some 1000 bytes, 2 megabytes or 2 million records into 1 megabyte, that itself will occupy 2 gigabytes of memory. It will become a problem. So you need to ensure your queries are restricting the number of records while you are fetching it from the database. Is this clear to you? The database operation using Python to bring it to memory. Same logic, whether you use Java, whether you use Node.js, always connection, cursor or the record set, query execute, fetch the number of rows that it is returning, then you fetch all those records into memory, then do a process, but most importantly, at the end, close without fail. That is extremely important. Good. Any questions in this so far, the database connectivity? It is same like file. File open, it returns a file handle. Same way, you open a database connection, it returns a database handle. You create a cursor object, then execute a query, it gives you the record set. Go through the record set, either fetch one by one or fetch all in one shot. Then after that, you process the tuple. It is up to you. And close the connections. Okay. Can we extract the data individually from the result set? Yes, of course, because right now, the moment you execute, what is it returning? It is tuple. From tuple, I want to get only the transaction data or what? It is tuple of 0, tuple of 1, 2, 3, 4. As simple as that. So you can get that, for example, I get R is equal to fetch 1, right? R of 0, I can do, let me do one thing, okay? Let me just print rather than for all the records, let me just fetch only first 10 records. Let me say r of 0, comma, r of 2. Okay. So I'm this and this alone I am printing. Let me run it. Let me comment this fetch all. Okay. See, now out of 206 rows returned, I got only the first 10. I am not printing the entire row. I am printing the first transaction date column and then the third column. That's all. Once it is in tuple, same like operations are of a tuple. That's it. Good. Any other question in this one? Okay. Now, if you look at the things that we have so far covered in Python, we started with comments, then we went through variables, we went through arithmetic operations, and within arithmetic operations also we used the inbuilt library math.sum of the functions. Then we went through relational operations like comparison, greater than, less than, etc. Logical operations of and, or, not. We went through string operations, finding the length, uppercase conversion, lowercase conversion, splitting, extracting a portion of the string. We also discussed about how to get the current date, split the date into its components like time, hour, etc. We went through the if, then, else, regular if, elif structure, if, within if, nested if conditions. Then we also went through the for loop and while loops. We went through the def, the functions, how to pass parameters, scope of variables, local scope and global scope. Then we also went through the pip install, getting external libraries and then doing installation of pip. Module, how to create a module, how to import a module in from one program to the other. Then we went through file operations, open the file, read through the file, or append to the file, or write to the file. Then today we went through the database operations, connection, creating the cursor object, executing the query, iterating through the record set. Finally, after the tuple, extract the specific column values you want, then finally close the connections. This is the core of any language you take, whether it is C, C++, Java, PHP, Node.js, Python, it is Go language, it is exactly the same, except the syntax. This is the core part of Python. The subsequent portions that you'll be seeing in Python will be based on how these core concepts can be used for data analytics. Okay, so this core concept will always help to build some logic. Again, I'm repeating, you will not be building a ton of logic in Python to do the core, to do ML or to do any other operations. Your job is to ensure that you use all this programming knowledge so that you don't err in your programs. That's the fundamental aim of getting the core part of the Python language.